Hey, welcome back. No long intro today. The stories speak for themselves. These ones stuck with me for days, and I think they'll stick with you too. Subscribe if you want more, and let's get started. My hairstylist has been collecting cut hair and photos from clients in labeled containers. I found her system, and I'm terrified. This is one of those stories where the discovery is so systematically wrong that it stops being a simple moment of finding something out of place. Here's how it started. I've been going to the same salon for 3 years. Every 6 weeks, I'd sit in Melissa's chair. She was good, friendly, professional, remembered my preferences. Everyone loved her. She had my head in her hands every time, and I trusted her completely. Last week, I dropped my phone behind the back counter. I went to look for it myself. That's when I noticed a locked drawer under the counter that I'd never really paid attention to before. Why would a drawer at a styling station need a lock? I asked Melissa about it. She went pale. She kept saying, that's a personal drawer. I need to keep that locked. But she unlocked it so I could get my phone. And that's when I looked inside. There were containers, dozens of them. Clear plastic containers like you'd use for buttons or screws. Each one had a label, client names, dates underneath, years, 2015, 2018, 2022, 2024. Inside each container was hair, cut hair, organized by date. But that wasn't the worst part. Underneath were photographs. Printed photographs, rows of them, organized in clear sleeves and cross-referenced with dates. The same clients, different haircuts, different years. A decade of transformations documented in a drawer like a collection. That's where the hook lands. That moment when OP's entire understanding of the person who had been touching her head for 3 years completely inverted. Because this wasn't random. This wasn't a quirk. This was systematic. This was deliberate. And there was documentation going back more than 10 years. But here's what OP discovered when she actually started looking at what was in front of her. I stood there just staring, my hands shaking. There had to be at least 30, maybe 40 containers lined up on these lower shelves. Each one had a label on the front, a name, a date range. Some of them said things like Sarah, 2016 to present, or Jessica, 2014 to 2025. I recognized some of these names. I've sat in that waiting area and heard Melissa call them up when they came in. These were people from town. I grabbed one at random. It had my name on it in black marker. Throwaway Salon 82, 2023 to present. That's when I realized Melissa had been keeping records of me for nearly 3 years. I opened the container with trembling fingers. Inside was a clear plastic bag full of my hair clippings, organized by date. Beneath that were photographs, dozens of them, printed color photos of me from different angles, different cuts, different seasons. Some had notes written on the back. The photos went back to my first appointment with her. There were pictures of me from that day, from my second visit, my third. Every major cut I'd gotten documented like she was tracking my life. Beside the photos was a small notebook with her notes. Things about my hair texture, color changes I'd mentioned, things I'd told her about my family and relationships. This wasn't careless. This wasn't a hobby. This was a filing system. I started pulling other containers off the shelf. Some went back to 2011, 2012, 15 years of documentation. And OP started to understand the scope of what Melissa had built. This wasn't some casual scrapbook hobby. This was systematic, meticulously organized, obsessive, a detailed record of multiple people's intimate transformations, their vulnerabilities, their secrets, all captured without consent while they sat exposed in her chair. The realization hit differently once she understood the full scale of it. Melissa hadn't been doing this for a few months with a new hobby. She'd been doing this for over a decade. This was premeditated. This was deliberate. And every single person in those containers had no idea. The organization became clear, meticulous. Inside each container was hair, cut different lengths over time, all from me. Some darker, some lighter. Years in labeled plastic. Beside each container were photographs. Professional shots of my face, straight on, profile, angles, me styled across the years, transformation documented. Then the notebook. My name at the top of a page with everything listed underneath. Where I work, the the gym I go to, which neighborhood I live in, dates I came in, what we talked about, personal stuff I'd mentioned casually, my sister's marriage troubles, my mom's health situation, medical information shared in passing. All cross-referenced, color-coded by year, everything organized with that same precision. What got to me most was the chair. Every 6 weeks I sat there, head tilted back, neck exposed, vulnerable, scissors near my throat. I thought we were just making conversation, but she was cataloging me, treating me like a specimen to document and keep. The comments came in fast. This is absolutely unhinged. Did she have any explanation at all, or did she just deny everything when confronted? There is no legitimate reason to do this, and I need to know what she even tried to say. Your hair is part of your body. She kept physical pieces of you. She documented your transformation. This is boundary violation at a deeply disturbing level. This is a serious red flag for escalation. People who collect trophies like this, hair, photos, personal data, often progress to stalking, breaking and entering, or worse. You did the right thing reporting it immediately. Throwaway, Salon 82. Yeah, the detective told me almost those exact words when I showed her the photographs in the notebook. She said she's seen this pattern before with people who escalate to serious crimes. What really stuck with me was when she asked if Melissa had ever tried to contact me outside the salon, or if I'd noticed her near my apartment or workplace. I hadn't, but the fact that she even thought to ask made me realize how bad this could have become. I'd told Melissa where I worked, which gym I went to, what neighborhood I lived in, and she had all of it documented. When I asked what else they found in her apartment, the detective went quiet. She said it was still under investigation. That silence scared me more than anything. OP came back a few days later with an update. Police found documentation I wasn't expecting. The detective called me back. I reported everything to the salon owner immediately. She was horrified and called the police right then. Within 2 days, detectives had a warrant and searched Melissa's apartment. What they found made everything worse. They uncovered 15 years of records, 2011 to 2026. Not just hair and photos, there was a notebook, a detailed notebook with cross-referenced information about clients, medical issues we'd mentioned in passing, family drama, relationship problems, work complaints, information I'd never explicitly told her, things she'd clearly researched or tracked down. The detective called me personally. He said the data collection pattern matched textbook stalking behavior, the systematic documentation, the escalation over time, the intrusion into our personal lives. He said it wasn't hoarding, it wasn't a quirk, it was predatory behavior with clear intent. He couldn't tell me everything about an ongoing investigation, but he said they were looking into her work history at other salons. If she'd been doing this for 15 years, there could be hundreds of victims. Comments on this one analyzed what made this documentation so damning. I work in salons, and this horrifies me. This violates every ethics code we have. She wasn't preserving nostalgia, she was stalking. The data collection makes this criminal behavior, not just weird. The notebook with information you never explicitly told her. That's the part that proves this was deliberate stalking. She was researching you all. This wasn't random collection, it was intentional predatory behavior. Exactly. This crosses from weird hoarding into actual stalking with intent. If she's researching clients offline, cross-referencing information, organizing it systematically, that's predatory, not a quirk. 15 years of data means potentially hundreds of victims. That's a pattern, not a mistake. I hope the police are investigating her past employment history too. The scope of the collection was finally making sense to people. This wasn't a quirk. It was a systematic predatory pattern spanning 15 years. 2 weeks after the search, the detective called OP back. There were details that didn't fit the profile of routine hoarding. Police found documentation I wasn't expecting. The detective called me back. The detective said they found more than just containers and photos. She'd kept detailed notes, cross-referenced, medical information I'd mentioned casually in the chair, family names and work schedules, things I'd said while sitting in her hands, probably thinking she wasn't really listening. Dates going back to 2011. 15 years of entries about the same people. When the detective walked me through it, he kept using one word: escalation. He said her apartment looked like an archive of how close she could get to people without crossing lines most of us don't even know exist. She'd been documenting patterns, watching people transform through haircuts and conversations and vulnerable moments. And the second the police showed up, her social media disappeared. Completely. Like she knew exactly which evidence hurt her case most. The comment section focused on one detail that kept coming up. The locked drawer is what gets me. She knew it was wrong. She hid it deliberately. That's not someone being absent-minded. That's someone who understood the violation and chose to hide it anyway. OP was terminated from the salon immediately. The investigation is ongoing, but stalled on some counts, the detective explained. It involves behavior that doesn't fit neatly into any single statute. OP stopped going to salons. She cuts her own hair now, with uncertain hands, no one else near her head. There's something that breaks when you realize a place you felt safe was actually a place you were being collected, and the stylist you trusted with your vulnerability becomes a stranger. On to the next story. My, 28 female, great-uncle's estate contained 50 years of family surveillance documentation, and I don't know if I'm in danger. Here's a post about inheritance that turns dark almost immediately. OP inherits a house from an estranged uncle, walks in thinking it's a routine executor job, and finds something hidden. And that discovery is just the beginning. I wasn't particularly close to my great-uncle Martin. Most of the family had written him off as the weird recluse, estranged since the 80s. When he died last month at 91, I was named executor, mostly because I was organized enough to handle it. His Victorian house was 2 hours outside the city. Everything inside was immaculate, almost sterile. His study had shelves organized by year dating back to the 1950s, but it was the basement that changed everything. I was checking for water damage when I found something wrong with the wall paneling. One section wouldn't sit flush. When I pushed it, a bookshelf swung inward like a door. Behind it was a hidden room, 12 by 15 feet, no windows. Just a card table, a bare light bulb, and filing cabinets lining every inch. Every wall was covered in photographs, names underneath, dates, red string connecting everything like a true crime board. Except every face was family. My parents, my siblings, cousins. Decades of documentation going back to the 70s, continuing to recent prints, some less than a month old. I was staring at a photograph of my sister taken just weeks ago, completely unaware she was being watched. That's where the post ends for this part. But what OP found next inside those filing cabinets, the files, the ledgers, the systematic documentation, that's when this goes from unsettling to truly horrifying. And it gets worse from there. The real horror wasn't in the photographs. That would have been bad enough. But it was what came next, waiting in those filing cabinets with methodical precision. She opened the first drawer. I started pulling the filing cabinets open. Each drawer was labeled by year and then subdivided by person. I found a whole cabinet dedicated just to me, photographs going back to childhood, newspaper clippings of my awards, screenshots of my social media from years back. But the photographs weren't the worst part. Inside each folder was a ledger, handwritten entries, clinical and precise, like Martin had been running some kind of intelligence operation. I pulled my folder out with shaking hands. The entries went back to 1995. They documented movements, specific times, specific locations. EK visited location 47, 3:15 p.m. to 4:40 p.m. EK purchased 3 pregnancy tests, CVS on Mason Street, 1:22 p.m. My heart stopped. EK was my cousin Emily. She'd miscarried years ago, something she'd only told her mom in confidence. There was a whole page documenting her and some guy, when they met, where they went, dates that lined up to within days of when I knew she'd gotten an abortion. All of it labeled like tactical surveillance. Every person in the family had a folder. Every one had vulnerabilities documented. SL, dependency issues, Friday nights at Fuck Bar on Main Street. RJ, affair with fuck, Tuesdays 7:30 p.m., Roosevelt Inn, room 304. Secrets people thought were private, documented, organized, analyzed like they were assets to be leveraged. And the red string connected it all. The photographs, the clippings, the entries, the folders, everything woven together on the walls with red string, showing relationships, dependencies, vulnerabilities, timelines. It was like a massive conspiracy board, except every person in the web was my family. Then I checked the dates. The last entry was 3 weeks ago. Martin died last month. So the entries didn't stop with him. They continued through 2026, right until his death. Someone else had been updating them. Someone else knew about this room. What OP realized standing alone in that hidden room, surrounded by decades of meticulous work and predatory documentation, would reshape everything about what came next. This wasn't the obsessive hobby of a dead man. This wasn't a cold archive left behind. This was active. This was ongoing. Someone was still maintaining these files, still documenting the family, still updating entries. And the moment OP opened this room, they had learned exactly what she'd discovered. The scope becomes impossible to ignore. I spent the next 8 hours sorting through decades of filing cabinets. The clinical entries continued year after year, but the recent folders made my stomach turn. There were photographs of my parents from June 2025, my brother at some restaurant, my sister in her front yard, all from the last year. All had his neat handwriting identifying them. What kept cycling through my mind wasn't the photographs, it was how. My great-uncle was 91 when he died. I found insurance paperwork showing he'd surrendered his driver's license in 2015. After that, nothing. No vehicle registrations. He didn't leave the house in the last decade. But the files kept growing. The photographs kept happening. The surveillance continued until the month he died. Someone was doing this for him. Someone still has access to everything he documented. And they absolutely know that I found it all. The comments came fast, asking the same thing OP wasn't. Your uncle was conducting surveillance operations on your family for 50 years, and you're at a hotel, and you still haven't contacted police? If there's even a chance someone is still monitoring you, you are in actual danger. This is not a should I tell my family situation. This is a someone may be planning something coordinated situation. Wait, you said his handwriting was steady through 2024, and his house is isolated. Did anyone check on him regularly? If a caregiver or family member visited, they would have seen the hidden room and surveillance setup. Have you asked anyone if they ever saw anything weird when they visited? That's actually a really good point. My parents visited once in 2019, just a single afternoon because he was getting older. They said he seemed fine, a little forgetful. They didn't go in the basement. Nobody visited after his stroke in 2021. The last 2 years, he was supposedly mostly housebound, which conveniently explains why he couldn't be out stalking people in person. But you're right. If someone was helping him, they had access to that house. They know exactly what I found down there. They know I'm reading his files. That thought hasn't let me sleep. I have to ask, are you absolutely certain your uncle is dead? Have you seen the body? Attended a funeral? Someone meticulous enough to document 50 years of surveillance might be meticulous enough to fake their own death. And that is where the dread takes hold. 3 days after the discovery, OP dug deeper and came back with an update. Someone's executing his plan, and I just became the target. I've been through the filing cabinets non-stop. Most of it was what I expected. Logs, photographs, records of locations. But then I found a folder labeled Phase 2, Implementation Contingency. Inside were emails. The sender addresses were mostly redacted, but someone was definitely coordinating with Martin. Words like readiness status and positioning assets. There were financial records too. Thousands moved between accounts I don't recognize. Maps with red markers indicating locations. My current address was circled. But the letter is what made my hands shake. Dated 4 months ago in Martin's handwriting. Ready on your signal. Everything is positioned. Contingencies locked in. Just give the word. Below that was a timeline labeled Activation Protocol with phases and dates. And then I found the photograph. It was dated 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks after Martin died. It's me, coming out of my apartment building. There's a handwritten question mark in red pen across my face. People immediately notice the same thing. The photo of you dated 3 weeks ago is the smoking gun. That proves ongoing surveillance after the documented files end. Either the stalking continued after his death, or he didn't die. Either way, you're in danger, and you need law enforcement, not Reddit advice. I need to know, why haven't you deleted this post? If someone is surveilling you and knows you're the executor, and they see you broadcasting this entire story with identifiable details, aren't you painting a target on yourself? I'm genuinely concerned you're going to get hurt by posting here. Yeah, same thought. OP is in a hotel. Someone photographed them 3 weeks ago. There are implications of an active threat, and they're discussing it on Reddit like it's a missing person case. Either this isn't real, or OP is in shock and not thinking clearly. If someone monitored this family that intensely for 50 years, they're definitely capable of tracking Reddit activity and metadata. The smart move is silent. OP's move is broadcast everything and wait for consequences. And OP wasn't responding. 3 weeks pass. OP writes from a hotel room, checking windows compulsively, phone on silent. Someone's executing his plan and I just became the target. I'm writing this at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep. The Phase 2 folder exists. Dated, organized, specific, everything spelled out. The protocol, the timeline, the contingencies. But there's one photograph I can't stop thinking about. It's of me, at my apartment, getting groceries, 3 weeks before I found the house. There's a date written on the back. There's a question mark underneath. That means someone knew I would find that room. Someone knew I would search the basement, find the bookshelf, open the filing cabinets. Someone's been watching me find it. I've spent the last 3 weeks paralyzed by 4 impossible choices. Burn the evidence, but copies exist somewhere, with people I'll never find. Go to authorities, but activating the protocol might mean violence I can't prevent. Confront the accomplice, but I don't even know who they are, just a redacted number and offshore accounts. Run. But then Martin wins anyway. Then they all win. I'm trapped in a box where every choice tastes like losing. Comments on this one landed differently. Please tell me you at least photographed some of this documentation before leaving. If you're the only person with proof and something happens to you, no one will even know what to investigate or look for. This is either the scariest post I've read in a long time, or the best creative writing I've seen. If it's real, you're literally in danger and posting on Reddit instead of calling the FBI. If it's fiction, well done because I'm genuinely unsettled. And here's what stays unanswered. Whether Martin died before that letter was sent or after. Whether the photograph was a warning or a checkmark. If the accomplice is still watching or just waiting. The questions multiply faster than answers ever could. On to the next one. I think my mother's live-in caretaker is systematically replacing all her belongings with cheap versions and deliberately making her question her sanity. This is the kind of story that starts with a small red flag, the kind you almost want to dismiss as paranoia. I hired Rebecca as a live-in caretaker for my, 78 female, mother 8 months ago. Mom has arthritis and needs daily help getting around, managing her meds, that kind of thing. Rebecca came highly recommended by an agency we trusted, and honestly, the first 4 months were great. She seemed genuinely caring, patient, organized, no complaints. Then something started happening that I can't stop thinking about. Around month 4, I began noticing that things in my mother's house were different. Not rearranged, replaced. Her pain medication came in a new bottle. Her throw blankets were different. Her reading glasses case wasn't the one I remembered. Her favorite mug, the one my brother gave her years ago, was gone, replaced with something generic. Each time I mentioned it, Rebecca had an explanation. The mug was chipped, the blankets were worn, the glasses case was old. She claimed she was being economical, trying to save money. But here's what terrifies me. My mother doesn't remember owning the originals. When I ask her about them, she's confused, uncertain. She's convinced herself she's forgetting things and is genuinely scared she's developing dementia. And then came the call that made everything click into place. My mother called me crying last week. She said she couldn't remember what her own favorite blanket looked like. She asked me if I thought she was losing her mind. That's when I knew something was very wrong here, and it wasn't about worn blankets or chipped mugs. OP started tracking the pattern more deliberately. Every visit to his mother's house, something else had been swapped out. Always with an explanation from Rebecca that sounded perfectly reasonable. Always something his mother would accept without questioning. And always, his mother would later forget she'd ever owned the original. The pain medication bottle was the first thing I noticed. Name brand she'd been on for years. Rebecca said to switch to generic to save money, and that made sense. But my mother couldn't remember the original at all. Then came the throw blankets, soft, worn ones draped over her couch. Rebecca replaced them with rough, synthetic versions. My mother couldn't remember ever liking those blankets. Her reading glasses case came back as cheap plastic instead of leather. "Can't believe I spent so much on that," she said. The worst was the mug from my brother, from about 10 years ago, something she loved. Rebecca mentioned she'd broken it and replaced it. My mother didn't push back. But here's what kept me awake. Every item had been replaced with the worst possible alternative. Not just cheaper, deliberately worse quality. Rough instead of soft. Flimsy instead of sturdy. My mother wasn't just forgetting the originals. She was starting to doubt whether she'd ever liked them. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't carelessness. This was calculated. Someone was systematically dismantling my mother's sense of reality. And that's when OP realized what was really happening. This pattern, the replacements, the deliberate downgrades, his mother's growing confusion and self-doubt. This wasn't random. It was psychological warfare. It was gaslighting dressed up as caretaking. By the third visit, OP stopped thinking about coincidences. I started making a detailed list. Not casually, I mean dated, organized, everything I noticed gone or swapped out. By August, I documented 17 items over 4 months. 17. Her pain medication was now a generic plastic bottle with a peeling label. The merino throw blankets my sister bought her, soft, expensive, were gone, replaced with cardboard-thin polyester that would pill in one wash. Her leather reading glasses case became cracked plastic. The mug from my brother, the one she kept on the shelf and used every morning for tea, just gone. Rebecca said it had a chip and she'd tossed it. My mother couldn't even remember owning it. That's when I stopped and really looked at these replacements. Not, oh, she went with the budget option. I examined them. Rough synthetic fabrics, cardboard that bent under pressure, cracked plastic seams. These weren't cheaper alternatives. These were the absolute worst versions of everything she'd owned. Rebecca hadn't just replaced them. She'd hunted for the most degrading, cheapest options possible. Not to save money, to make my mother's life feel smaller, cheaper, less worthy, to make her doubt what she'd ever had at all. And the Reddit thread was lighting up with people who recognized exactly what was happening. This is elder abuse, absolutely. The gaslighting about memory is almost worse than the theft. She was deliberately making your mother feel insane so she wouldn't question the missing items. Has Rebecca had access to your mother's actual bank accounts or credit cards? Because if she's been this systematic with belongings, she might be doing the same with finances. She handles all household expenses and shopping by mutual agreement. My mother approved it for convenience. Rebecca submits receipts each week for reimbursement, but I never actually verified them. I have no way of knowing if those items were ever purchased at all, or if Rebecca was just pocketing the difference and pulling cheap replacements from items already in the house. I feel sick thinking about how long this could have gone unnoticed. My mother trusted her completely, and that trust was weaponized. The receipts I found were completely fabricated. Different dates, different stores. Some items never existed. I've worked in elder care for 12 years. Caregivers who immediately get defensive when questioned about where things are. That calculated tone you described? That's a major red flag. She had her explanation ready because she's practiced it before. I'm genuinely concerned this isn't her first time. On to the next one. Finally, OP moved. I found all of her belongings hidden in Rebecca's room, and the police are now investigating. I couldn't sit with this anymore. Last Tuesday, I came over and asked Rebecca if I could use the bathroom in her room. She froze. Said it was in rough shape, but I walked past her anyway. What I found made me sick. Shelves full of everything. The original reading glasses case, my mother's actual pain medication bottles, the throw blankets she loved, the mug from my brother. Every item, organized, labeled, with dates, like a catalog. I called the police from my car. When they searched, they found fake receipts going back years. She'd been charging my mother $40 for items that cost $5. But it wasn't just theft. It was deliberate, methodical. The detective said this pattern, the psychology of it, suggests she's done this at other homes, other families. My mother is finally safe. Rebecca is not. The comment section understood exactly what had happened. Get your mother a cognitive assessment from her doctor immediately and have them document it. She needs a medical baseline on record proving her memory was fine before this, because if this goes to court or police involvement, you'll have proof the decline was situational and psychological, not neurological. The fact that everything was organized neatly in her room like inventory is chilling beyond words. This wasn't desperate or impulsive. This was planned, methodical, and calculated over months. She was building a collection. That organization suggests she's done this elsewhere. Exactly. That level of deliberate organization strongly suggests predatory behavior she's repeated before. Caregivers who do this often hit multiple homes and build the same pattern each time. The police have likely seen her profile if they work elder abuse cases regularly. She was systematically stealing your mother's reality piece by piece. That level of deliberate organization strongly suggests predatory behavior she's repeated before. The detective said the same. They found another case at a different home 3 years ago. Same pattern, same receipts. She was cycling through families. How many others weren't so lucky? OP found everything hidden in Rebecca's room, organized like a display case of stolen goods. I found all of her belongings hidden in Rebecca's room, and the police are now investigating. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The shelf in Rebecca's closet held every single item my mother missed. Her reading glasses case, the mug my brother gave her, her pain medication bottle with her name still on it. All organized like a museum exhibit. When I called the police, they served a warrant within hours. Rebecca was arrested that evening. What the investigation revealed was worse than simple theft. The fake receipts went back years. She'd marked up every item. $5 blankets charged at $40, $10 mugs at $50. But the investigator made one comment that really stuck with me. They didn't think it was about the money. Rebecca had deliberately chosen the absolute worst replacements possible, the cheapest synthetics, cracked plastic, rough, uncomfortable substitutes. She wanted my mother to notice the difference. She wanted her to feel degraded. This wasn't theft or fraud. This was psychological torture disguised as caregiving. The legal case moved forward, but the real damage wasn't something you could prosecute. Mom spent weeks convinced she was losing her mind. Even with evidence in front of her, even with police reports confirming everything, she couldn't shake the voice telling her she'd imagined owning those things. A psychologist explained that gaslighting at this level doesn't just vanish when the perpetrator disappears, it stays. And I keep wondering, how long could this have continued unnoticed? How many months before my mother's doubt became permanent? How many other families are dealing with this right now? How many elderly people are being convinced they're losing their minds by someone they depend on? This wasn't just elder fraud. It was systematic psychological abuse masked by a job title. The detail about deliberately choosing the worst quality replacements is what horrifies me. That's not about saving money, that's psychological abuse. She wanted your mother to feel the difference, to feel the sting of degradation. That's torture. That's how abuse hides itself, in a job title and a reference check. On to the next one. My husband is framing me for his sister's death, and I just realized he's doing it on purpose. This is the kind of story where you think you're watching someone cope with grief, and then you realize you're watching something calculated and deliberate. I'm, 31 female, married to Mark, 34 male, for 6 years. His sister Emily died in a car accident a month ago, devastating for everyone. 2 weeks after the funeral, Mark went to the police claiming I killed her. Said I was obsessed with him leaving and Emily encouraged space. Lies. But then he started providing evidence. Fake texts between me and someone he claimed was a hitman. A jacket he said was mine. His mother corroborated a story about overhearing me on the phone. Police took it seriously. I thought grief was breaking his mind. For weeks I tried to be patient because I thought trauma was making him say these things. Went to therapy, talked to family, documented everything. Last week, I found his notes app while looking for something in his desk. Drafts. Confessions to his mother with detailed plans. The jacket he planted, where and why. The fake texts, notes on what details would seem authentic. Everything mapped out meticulously. There was one line: if she goes to prison, Emily's thing stays buried. He planned this deliberately, willing to let me rot in prison for something I didn't do to protect whatever secret his sister had. That's what I'm sitting with. The confusion slowly transforms into something much colder. But here's what makes your blood run cold. Not just the planning, but the fact that he's gone silent since she found it. That kind of quiet is worse than any explosion. She's still waiting to see what happens next. The first shock came when police knocked on her door. Mark had gone to the station 2 weeks after Emily's funeral with a folder of evidence, screenshots of text messages, supposed confessions he claimed I'd given him. I genuinely thought he was experiencing a psychotic break from grief. When the detective arrived, I handed over my phone immediately. Everything was normal, clean. But that made him more suspicious, like I was smart enough to cover my tracks. By the end of the week, Mark's fabricated evidence had become more credible than my actual phone. A jacket with a scratch claiming it matched Emily's windshield. Witness statements from people at his company I'd never met, swearing they'd heard me make threats. He was meticulous. Months of planning, and I had no idea. My boss called me in. My lawyer kept saying, just cooperate, the truth will come out. But it wasn't. Every denial seemed to confirm their suspicion. Every question sounded defensive. I was losing my job in real time, watching my reputation collapse under fabricated evidence my husband had constructed. And knowing he knew exactly what he was doing made it worse. This wasn't grief. This was calculated. Everything he'd done was deliberate, and I'd walked straight into it. By the time she realized what was actually happening, the machinery was already unstoppable, and she was already keeping track of every inconsistency, every fabrication, every lie. And then everything gave way. I lost my job 3 weeks in. My manager called me without warning, said they'd seen the news online, that clients were uncomfortable, that I was a liability. 6 years there. Good reviews. Didn't matter. One accusation, and I was done. My friends ghosted. Slowly at first. Missed plans, group chats going silent when I'd message. Jessica, who I'd called crying, actually told me to stay away from gatherings until this blows over. As if it would. As if Mark, 34 male, wasn't sitting at home refining the lie that would destroy me. My family was worst. My parents didn't think I'd done it, but they stopped calling. My sister asked questions that sounded like accusations. Where were you when it happened? At work, with witnesses. Didn't matter. Did you have life insurance on her? No, but Mark, 34 male, did. They wanted to believe me. They just couldn't, not against what he'd built. The evidence was too perfect because he'd designed it that way. My lawyer called Thursday. Police were filing charges. Fabricated texts, planted jacket, coached witnesses. Compelling enough for trial, he said. Real prison time. Likely. I needed to prepare for the worst. I was in a coffee shop when he told me, staring at my cold drink, and the only thought I could hold was, no one is going to believe me. No one. The replies cut through it. I'm so sorry. You're doing the right thing documenting, staying safe, working with a lawyer. This will come out. But please prioritize your physical safety right now. That matters more than anything else. The fact that he said that out loud to your face is chilling. He doesn't think you have any power. He thinks you're too shocked, too isolated, too deep in the narrative he's built. He's right, and he knows it. That's what stuck with her. Clarity without mercy. A few weeks into this nightmare, OP made a discovery that should have changed everything. I found his draft messages confessing to everything, and now he's gone completely silent. I found them on his laptop. Draft messages to his mother, dated just days before he went to the police. Everything is there. The planted jacket, he wrote out exactly where he'd hidden it and when he'd retrieved it. The faked texts, he has screenshots showing what he modified, what he sent to fuck, the whole chain of fabrication. The fake witness statement, even drafts of what he was going to tell the cops to say. He literally documented his own scheme like he was proud of it. When I read it, I couldn't breathe. This is what I needed. This is proof. This is my way out. Then my lawyer looked at it and said it doesn't matter. Turns out I found these on his laptop without permission. Accessing his files without consent is illegal. Everything in there is inadmissible in criminal court. The very evidence that proves he's guilty can't be used to prove I'm innocent. My lawyer said even showing it to the police could get me in trouble. And the worst part? Mark knows. I confronted him about it and he just stopped. No rage, no denials. He went completely silent. He knows I found it. He knows I can't use it. And now he's just waiting to see what happens next. The responses to this update cut right to what was happening. Those draft messages are evidence of intent and fabrication. If they're inadmissible in criminal court, your lawyer might still use them in civil proceedings or to establish a pattern of harassment for a protective order. Consult specifically about that. You are in genuine danger. The fact that he's been silent since you found those messages is a major red flag. This type of person doesn't give up. He's reassessing, planning. Do not be alone. Tell someone in your real life where you are. This exactly. Silence from someone this calculated is infinitely scarier than anything loud. He's either planning his next move or figuring out how to discredit those messages when they inevitably come up. Either way, he's not done. Someone willing to burn his wife to cover his own tracks won't hesitate to escalate when he feels the control slipping. And so she's sitting in a hotel room, no home, no job, documenting everything, waiting for a trial that will swallow her alive. I found his draft messages confessing to everything, and now he's gone completely silent. I'm writing this from a hotel room that smells like other people's sadness. After I found those draft messages, the ones where Mark basically confesses everything, I confronted him. I told him I knew what he did. And then he just stopped. He doesn't answer calls. He moved out. His lawyer sends messages now. I can't touch him legally because everything I found was on his phone without permission. My lawyer said it's inadmissible fruit of the poison tree or whatever. So I have proof, undeniable proof, and it means absolutely nothing in court. I lost my job 2 weeks ago. My sister won't return my calls. I'm facing a trial for a murder I didn't commit, sitting on evidence that proves I didn't do it, and no one can use it. Mark knows this too. That's why he's so calm now. He calculated this too. The worst part is Emily. Whatever happened to her, accident, negligence, something worse, the real truth died with her. And Mark has hidden it so carefully behind this frame job that we might never know. He's sacrificed me to keep that secret, and he's going to get away with it. One comment got straight to the heart of it. His sister's death might not have been an accident. That line about needing to move on and stop people asking questions, that's not about grief. He might have caused it, or let it happen. Either way, he's premeditated this cover-up to the detail. And here's what keeps you up about stories like this. OP did everything right. She documented. She found proof. She went to authorities. And none of it mattered because the system protected the person with the plan. She's waiting for trial in a hotel room while her husband moves on, and no one will ever know what really happened to Emily. That is the last story for today.